If you're resentful about your husband or partner, and if you think like he's yelling even more at the kids and why is that and how you can help him, how to go about it. The first thing you do is... Hi, and welcome to the Zen Supermom podcast. In the episode today, we will be talking about dads, super dads. How is it that dads can stay calm? How is it that dads, even though they were raised in that traditional authoritarian way, how to set boundaries with kids so that they are respectful, if they understand that this is not the most effective way, what is it that they can do? To not feel that anger, start changing those patterns they got from their parents, and to become calm and be able to set healthy boundaries, just like you are trying to do, Supermom. What is it that you can do to help your husband or partner to get there? Let's talk about it. Hi, Supermom or Superdad. Alena here, your mommy tantrum specialist and the founder of the Zen Supermom system. And me and my team have helped hundreds of moms and dads start setting healthy boundaries with calm. And this is the first parenting podcast that is not about your kids, that shows you why none of the parenting techniques helped you stop yelling at your kids, and how to control your emotions from jumping out so that you can be the safe, loving parent you wish you had growing up. This is the Zen Supermom podcast. Hi Supermom, Elena here, your mommy tantrum specialist and the founder of the Zen Supermom system, where we help busy, loving moms stay calm and set healthy boundaries with your kids, right? So that when they trigger you, you don't have to yell at them, just like your parents used to yell at you. And for this episode, I would invite you to listen in first, take some notes. And if you think that your partner or husband might benefit from that, maybe share this episode with them, because it will be about dads. It will be about men. I spend a lot of time talking in this podcast to you, to mom. And I'm getting more and more requests and questions about, well, how about dads? Does it mean that men don't have any patterns to rewrite from their own parents, from their own childhood? Like, what are they supposed to do? Do you work with men inside your Zen Supermom program? Like, please, can we come both as a couple? Would that be helpful? Or would my husband, just take just those therapy sessions and not do the rest of the program? Because you talk only about moms. Like, what about the guys? Who's helping them? So here we are. This episode is for men as well. Because, surprise, surprise, the principles are exactly the same. So us as moms, we have usually the good girl syndrome, right? Think about it for yourself. If you grew up being pushed by your parents to be nice, always smile, never get angry, always say yes, always do the things first time somebody asked, never express your own opinion, especially if it's a disagreement, never be too much, and ideally listen and do it even before your parents ask. That was me, classic good girl. Then often what happens with little boys is that, and especially if they have a sister who is already the good girl, like which was the case of me and my brother, then the good kid place was taken and my brother just couldn't and didn't want to compete with me over who's the better kid. So he just basically gave up. I'm going to be the bad guy. So he went on the other side of the spectrum and he was the rebel one. But he was pushed by our parents as well to comply and to do things right and to listen. And they were putting even much more force. And they were pushing him even more because he did not bend as easily as I did. So there was even more negative energy. There was even more of making him not feel good enough if he did not listen. There was even more convincing him that he's not a good boy unless he behaves. So he got it actually even harder. And his generational trauma is then similar, but even stronger in a way, right? So not only he was told that he was not good enough, not acceptable, not worthy of attention and care and love unless he behaved. But then boys are usually taught to cut themselves off of emotions. Because if you show emotions, it means you're too weak, and be a man, take care of the family and everybody, because it's you, the guy who needs to take care of the tribe and provide. So there's no space for weakness. You just have to get strong and think rationally, because this is the best logical way, analytical. Just analyze the situation and push to get the best out of it, because the weight of the family is on your shoulders. How about that for a generational trauma? So if little boys would cry or complain, this is too hard, I can't do this, or I need mommy, I need a hug, they would be basically pushed away. No, just suck it up, learn how to take care of yourself, because it's a dog-eat-dog world out there and nobody's going to have your back, so you better, like you and your brothers, and just take care of each other, and no emotions, no sadness, no crying, just don't be a wussy and suck it up and go. This is the generational trauma. So I already mentioned it in one of the podcast episodes where I was talking about if you're resentful about your husband or partner, and if you think like he's yelling even more at the kids, and why is that, and how you can help him. I already shared a little bit of advice there, but we are going to go a little more into detail here because I see that topic coming up a lot. So how to go about it? Right? The first thing you do is, again, empathy for your husband or partner. If you love him, you want to help him through, and you want him to stop showing signs of trauma, which is either this aggression and or then on the other extreme, depression. We are working with clients whose husbands are even suicidal, because the depression went so far that they really don't know how to cope with this, how to cope with this inner conflict of not being able to show their emotions, because they were punished for it, for showing their emotions, right? But just like you were punished for being angry, being little girl. So now that anger is jumping up at your kids when they are pushing your boundaries. The same is happening for your husband. And it is even stronger because they are taught not to show emotions. So then either become really overly aggressive, because that's the only way their parents taught them how to get things done, by being aggressive and by being demanding and authoritative. And I'm the father and I'm the head of the family. You do not challenge me, otherwise you're going to pay for it. Or then when they realize that's the wrong way, because they know how much it damaged them when they were little, they go to the other extreme and they swallow that anger. So they still feel not good enough. They still feel disconnected from their feelings. They still they're suffering from it. But because they are feeling it's not okay to let that anger go out at others and hurt them with that, they swallow it in and they become depressed. Depression is basically impotent anger. Anger that has no way out, that frustrates you so much that you feel like in this, what they give to patients in psychiatric hospitals, this like straight jacket that you cannot move. That's what the swallowed anger does with you. It makes you feel completely helpless, clueless, and so then you just give up and you become depressed, because that's how things are. That's what my life is. I cannot do anything about it, because if I would do, then I would yell, and that's not good. So that's how they are spending their life now, in a straight jacket, right? So if you see any of those extremes, they're both equally dangerous, not healthy, not only for your husband, but also for your kids who are watching and who are learning every second, more than from what you and your husband say, from how you react, what you do, what is your energy. So if you want to help your husband, first thing, lots of empathy, as I said. Second thing, leading by your own example. It really helps, and we hear it over and over again from our clients inside the Zen Supermom program. Once you start making progress with the kids, because you stop yelling, and at the same time you start having more success. It's more effective, the way how you communicate with your kids. They start listening more. You stop having so many fights with them, so many dramatic moments, and they are much more attuned to you. You feel much more connected, understanding each other. So there's much less drama at home, and the husband will start seeing it. And initially, their first reaction always is like, no, you're too soft, and it's your fault that I need to yell because they don't have any discipline, la da 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 da. You don't listen to that, because it's their trauma talking. You keep going. In the next 2-3 weeks, if you stick with it, they start seeing the changes. And then they start thinking, like observing, like, Those who are not too far in their like trauma mechanisms, they start coming closer to you and they start getting curious. What is it that you're doing? How is it that it's working? Like, what is this podcast you're listening to? What is this program you're doing? They start getting curious and you can start sharing. You can let them do the saboteur assessment from positive intelligence. Saboteurs being the trauma coping mechanisms, basically. Like they are running their lives without even realizing it. You can let them do the assessment to find out, like, see what voices you have in your head, because it's them who jump up whenever you get stressed or whenever you feel not listened to. So they start listening, and this is the best selling point. Okay, you cannot push anybody to change. You know that if anybody would try to push you because they would be telling you, you're such a terrible mom, you should be doing something about it because you're yelling at your kids and you're hurting them so much. If somebody told you this, like, that's not, it's negative motivation. It works too, but it feels like, right? If you see positive example, if you get inspired to change and there's a positive vision that's driving you because you start seeing some first success and you're like, oh my goodness, this is working, I want more, let me go. Positive motivation and drive. It's much more effective, right? And this is the same thing that you want with your husband. Rather than pushing him by blaming him, making him feel guilty and ashamed how terrible father he is because he's yelling at the kids, they will have the trauma and they are learning from him how to yell. Rather than doing that, lead by positive example. Lead by showing him what's possible. Okay, that's always the better way. It's the same like with your kids, right? Like you want to highlight and appreciate and be thankful for and tell them about what they're doing right, rather than beating them up over the one mistake they made out of 99 other cases, right? It's the same thing. So apply the same technique with your husband. After you do that, many of them will still feel skeptical. Okay, because either they have never asked for help, because again, this is part of the generational trauma of men, like never ask for help because that's a sign of weakness. You're smart enough, you should be figuring it out on your own, right? Because if you ask for help, it means you're a loser. Part of their trauma, okay? If they are enlightened enough to understand they need help, the next obstacle we need to jump over is the fact that they often did therapy that is not appropriate for this kind of trauma. They have often went through classic talk therapy, gestalt therapy, like behavioral therapy, but this is not about changing their behavior. This is about treating the root cause of it, which you and I know is their childhood trauma, but in their mind, they had a happy childhood, normal childhood, like whose parents don't yell? They had to yell at me because I was a bad boy, like, or they need to put me in line and discipline. It was tough, but you see, I grew up in a nice, responsible man. I'm taking care of you and the family. Wasn't that good? I want my kids to be able to do the same. Yeah, right. So why do you keep pushing? Why do you keep feeling not good enough? Why do you feel so triggered if somebody criticizes you, right? Like high childhood trauma. So we're not going to point fingers, not going to make him feel bad. But just this is the other obstacle we have to jump through, because they might have done some other therapy. But most of by the way, there are more than 4,000 different kinds of therapy. I just read some research study. There's so many different types of therapy. They are all adapted to certain things to help with, because there's so many mental diseases and problems, challenges these days. So they're all tailored or meant to help with something else. Classic talk therapy, that's a model that's more than 40, 50 years old now. That doesn't work for healing trauma. It's literally just that, talking. And by talking, you're supposed to feel better, which sometimes you do when you have somebody who knows how to listen, unless they fall asleep, which one of my clients also told me that her talk therapist was snoring as she was talking. Amazing. But talk therapy is not adapted to grip and heal childhood trauma. Okay, let's put that straight. So that's a problem, because if your husband already went through talk therapy, if he kind of like accepted, okay, I will get help from somebody, I will admit there's something wrong with me, which is already so hard for them to do with the big ego they are raised to have, the talk therapy didn't help. So now they're super skeptical, because again, that protective analytical mind kicks in and like, Nah, nah, nee, nah, nah. I'm not going to trust any other therapist because I already tried. That doesn't work. And moreover, I'm not going to talk to a woman because it's my mom who was yelling at me. It was my mom who was making me feel not good enough. Now you, my wife, are behaving like my mom, reminding me again, putting me in my place, again making me feel not good enough. I'm not going to talk to a third woman who would make me feel not good enough and who would point out and find all the skeletons in my closets and reason why I'm not okay. Not going to do that. So, we need to help them get over that obstacle. You can do that by sharing that saboteur test. This is usually one of the first things that I do with highly analytical, super smart men who have already done therapy before, and they're like, nah, it doesn't work because it's just blah, 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 but I don't feel any difference, no change, it doesn't go deep enough. So show them, let them do that saboteur assessment. You can let them do also their PQ test, which measures the level, the ability to be able to stay calm, even in stressful situation, even under a lot of pressure. Yeah. Because, by the way, you can tell them all of these assessments, they are developed and done especially for CEOs, for executive managers who are under a lot of pressure in their jobs because they are leading like these multi-million corporations and several thousand heads employee teams. So that's what that was developed for, okay? So don't even tell them about parenting and yelling. You can tell them like, yeah, this would help you with your overall level of stress and managing that and just becoming much more self-confident and calm, even under those high-pressure situations, okay? This can be a first point of interest because it kind of makes it less about those touchy-feely emotions and childhood things, and maybe they didn't even tell you about everything that was going on in their childhood, so that still makes it like safe distance. That's usually a great entry point. And then, if you're one of the few lucky ones that your husband is really super aware, super enlightened. He already had his come to Jesus moment, as they call it in English. He understands. He needs help. He's ready to take it. He understands talk therapy is not going to help. And he wants more of what you are doing because he sees it working. Then you can let him watch this podcast episode and you can let him reach out to me. Ideally, I would want to talk to both of you. It's better if you book like separate consultations because we would still help you each individually. But if you jump in at the same time, because yes, inside the Zen Supermom program, everything we do, it's called Mom, Zen Supermom everywhere. If he can get over that, if that doesn't bother him, we would do exactly the same thing as we would do with you. You need to book your one-to-one sessions with one of my coaches to heal your childhood trauma separately. We can give you even 2 different coaches so that you know that your childhood secrets are not going to get to your husband and otherwise, and likewise the other way around, okay? So that you're separate. And both of you will start doing your mental fitness work, which is really about rewriting those blah blah voices in your head that make you feel not good enough. You need to push harder. You need to keep control and boundaries. And this is how to do it by yelling. Otherwise, kids are going to be spoiled. All of these trauma coping mechanisms, perfectionist, controller, victim, avoider. Guys have such a strong avoider voice in them. Like, this is too much drama. Like, you're yelling at those kids too much. I'm out of here. I can't handle this. Especially if they grew up at homes when they were yelled at, where there was lots of chaos, lots of drama. They learned that the best way is to just like walk away from it. Like, I can't handle this. None of my business. I'm out of here. Part of their generational trauma as well, right? That needs to be rewired so that they learn how to be able to stay even in the discomfort of feeling all of these emotions. They need to start feeling these emotions again without those emotions taking them off balance. Yeah, because that's what they're afraid of. That the moment they start feeling, they lose control, they stop being rational, they become vulnerable, and like then anything can happen. I will get hurt. I will not get things done. This is the fear, right? That's why we need mental fitness, because after decades and decades of running on this autopilot without even thinking about it, you don't know how to do it better. Like, this is what your parents, this is what your dad did. If you're a super dad listening now, if you came in, this is what your dad did. So like, how do you do something better, something else, something more effective? Yeah, not judging your dad. He did the best he could, but this is probably what he was taught by his parents, right? So you need to learn those new mechanisms, how to have effective communication without shutting down your feelings, and also without those feelings overwhelming you, how to keep control inside. Did you grow up being the good girl? Always pushed by your parents to be nice, be in a great mood, always say yes, do things so well even before they ask you, never allowed to have any bad mood, never allowed to say no, and never feeling quite good enough unless you overachieved, people pleased everybody, took care of everybody else and put yourself last. If that was your case, I would also dare to assume that it's now really difficult for you to love your kids unconditionally, because you feel even jealous sometimes. How can I give unconditional love to somebody if they don't have to work to deserve it? Because that's how you always felt about yourself, right? People need to deserve being worthy of love and feeling good enough. So if you would love to stop giving that generational trauma to your children, the trauma and pain of never ever feeling quite good enough and having to deserve and work for love, then join me in the 31-day unconditional self-love practice that I prepared exactly for moms like you, because you want to do better for your kids. So let me be your guide. There's a registration link that you can use, and I'm going to see you inside. Why is this so important? You want to learn this because if you have a son, he's watching you. He will be doing exactly the same when he grows up and when he has kids. If you have a daughter, you want to show her this is how a respectful husband and dad treats his children and wife. You do not want to yell at your wife. You don't want to yell at your kids, because that will give your daughter a blueprint of what kind of husband she will be looking for. She will find exactly somebody like you, Dad. So you want her to choose somebody who will treat her with respect. And in order to do that, you need to start treating your family with respect, showing your emotions, showing how much you care, telling them, I'm angry right now. You can say that. You can show that you're angry without taking that anger out on them. So that you still feel safe, so that they are not worried and scared and in constant panic because dad comes home, I didn't do my homework, I broke something, or I made mom sad and I have no idea what's going to come because dad is going to get so angry. And it's like, if you went through something similar in your childhood, then you know how that feels for a child, right? Being scared of dad, your own dad. That's why you need to heal your childhood trauma, rewire those automated patterns in your brain that keep running in those unhealthy, ineffective ways. And doing it together with your wife will make it actually, it's so beautiful. It's like, oh, the angels are saying now. I love it so much when that happens. Because not only you will become better parents for your kids, showing them the best example of how family works, what is unconditional love towards your children, but also towards each other. And this is why this Zen Supermom method actually works even better than any couples therapy. Because rather than blaming each other, rather than feeling resentful, and you don't do this, and you don't do this, and you're criticizing me for this, and you never talk to me, and I don't feel heard, and I'm feeling hurt, rather than blaming each other and basically throwing each other trauma at each other and getting triggered by each other's trauma, you take it out. You start having a common language, and you start using the language to say, well, I'm sorry for my reaction. My inner child was triggered. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to say it this way. I know you meant well, but it's just like I got triggered by it. Not your fault. Yeah, and I'm sorry it was my avoider because it was just too much for me. So I wanted to leave because I couldn't handle it, too big emotion. So I'm sorry I was not there for you. You start talking about your saboteurs, those voices in your head, so that it's not personal. You see, you don't blame the person. You have empathy for the person. You blame it on the saboteurs, on those trauma mechanisms that you are actively working on improving. Yeah? You see how that becomes much more effective? And you hold each other accountable for doing the work. You're doing the work together. You're learning together. You're practicing together. You will see how the other one is trying to make improvements. You will celebrate together their wins. You will be catching not their mistakes, but you'll be catching their wins so that you can praise them and you can cheer them up to do even better the next time. And this is how you lift each other up. This is where suddenly there are no more misunderstandings. There are no more grudges, like that you're mad at each other for months, that you have a fight and you remind each other like, you've done this already so many times, like last month and last year, and still like all of this old stuff still keep coming up. You stop making it personal. You understand it was your childhood trauma. It was your trauma coping mechanisms, aka saboteurs. You're working on it. There are no more grudges. They're just this to support, and you're on this journey together. You have common language. You know you have your goal. You know what it takes to get there, and you're doing it together. So I'll finish that's basically a sales pitch for the program, but I just wanted to let you know it is possible for dads. And not only it's possible, it's like this is the best case scenario when you can do it together. Yeah. Because it's going to make you stronger. And it's going to improve also your relationship. Yeah. So this is my answer. Is it possible? If one caveat now for moms who are listening and they're just like thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I had this husband. Like my husband doesn't want to hear anything about it. And he's like, oh no, I cannot even let him listen to this podcast episode. He would think I'm crazy. He would not even listen for 3 minutes. He would just roll his eyes and like, no. If that's you, also notice what's happening here. Okay. You might be so tired. And I'm not blaming you for that. I'm not saying you're making it up. You're probably tired, exhausted of doing everything by yourself. You feel not listened and not heard by your husband. You feel like it's just you putting up all the work. And so then most likely you have started like nagging more and more often. So the more you push from this negative place, then the more he will disconnect and he will start drifting even further. Right? I'm not saying it's your fault, but yes, this is also a result of your own trauma and coping mechanisms, because and probably the patterns that you saw in your own family, how often it is that we reproduce exactly the relationship pattern of our parents, then we reproduce in our relationships, isn't it? The best way to turn it around is really starting with you. I'm not saying that you can change your partner, but I'm saying that you can change your relationship when you start doing the work. You need to decide, is your relationship really at the point when you can repair it and you want to repair it because you love your husband? And that's the topic, by the way, that I already mentioned in that first episode that I made about moms and dads and couples. You can go deeper in that episode. But this is really the point when you need to decide, is this relationship worth putting my effort and work in? If it's yes, then this is really where it starts. It starts with you, with empathy, with understanding. Your husband is not doing it on purpose. He is driven by those trauma coping mechanisms. You cannot push him to get the help if he doesn't want. The best way, how to convince him, how to show him the way, how to positively motivate and encourage him, is for you to get the results, is for you to learn, heal your own trauma and learn the new patterns of healthy communication with healthy, direct boundaries. And then once you learn how to do it with your kids, you'll start doing the same with your husband. Healthy, clean boundaries with clear, natural consequences of action or inaction. Okay, it's exactly the same model. Okay. But this is just for any victim voices in your head who are feeling like jealous and sad and disappointed of their other moms whose husbands might be joining in together and yours will not. Catch those victim voices in your head. You still have a lot of power of the situation. You can still do something about it. Good. So let me know if this episode was helpful for you. If there are any dads listening and interested in digging in more into your trauma healing possibilities, then reach out to me. The process is still the same. For anybody who I see is qualified, who is not only you understand what it takes, that I'm not a parenting coach, not a parenting expert, and I'm not a talk therapist. So you need to understand these things. You need to want to change now. I'm not wasting my time talking to people who are just like, I'm just curious because I love learning, so just let me know what methods you're using, and trying to just like challenge me. So explain me, what methods are you doing exactly? And trying to analyze it and trying to, I get it because it's normal. You've never done it. You've never done generational developmental trauma therapy, and especially if you've done some therapies before, you're skeptical. That's normal. We can talk about it, yeah? If you're serious about getting help, we can talk about it. What I'm just saying, I'm not interested in booking free consultations with people who have it just as an intellectual hobby to understand and because I like learning. No, I want to talk to you if you know that you want to stop yelling at your kids, or then on the other side, you want to stop being depressed on like antidepressant medication because your anger went so deep inside of you that you can't even get it out or heal it in any other way, and you want to change now. It's urgent. You see what impact it's having on your family, on your marriage, and you want to change it now. No more excuses. Like, tell me what it takes. Explain to me. Yes, because I have lots of questions. I would explain, but let's start doing it now. Okay. Those are the people I want to talk to. If you're a mom, if you're a dad. Okay. Because it works for both. Okay. I hope that helped. Reach out if you need help. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you. You are more powerful than you even realize. The fact that you have the courage to say no to that generational trauma domino of good girls and good boys and like pushing little people's boundaries because they're small, they are stupid. I have to be there to protect them so that they wouldn't get killed. Yes, you can do that, but without destroying their spirit and soul just like your parents did to you. If you understand that, I love you. I love working with you. Even in podcasts like this, in my free training, this is exactly what it makes like worth me spending my time with parents like you, because I feel this is just part of global like change that I see coming and that I want to be part of. The mental health, this whole like talking about how not good we feel inside our heads, this is really huge. You can see it everywhere. There's so much war, crimes, crisis, illnesses, like so much pain and suffering outside. I believe if only each of us did the little piece we can, heal your own pain. You don't have to save the world. You don't have to fight for world peace, like the latest Miss World for whatever, having Nobel global, I will save the world. You don't have to. Just heal your own pain, and this world will be a better, safer, more loving place. Start with you and your family, and you get that. So I love hanging out with you. Keep me posted how this helped. Reach out if you want that free consultation. I'm going to do a few checks, ask you a few questions before I check my calendar link with you, and then we can talk. I cannot wait. Take care, super parents. Bye. If you like this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that you'll be notified when the new episodes are out.